Hi guys, it's your girl Melissa at Miyamo Mental Health. Hey guys, it's your girl Melissa. So today I want to discuss the different layers of PTSD. I specialize in PTSD. It's my major when I went to school. Trauma and addiction studies, that is my major, that is my core of where I actually started my studies. Of course, we have all these other miscellaneous conditions. When we talk about anxiety, depression, OCD, we talk about ADHD, we talk about Asperger's, we talk about narcissism, we talk about postpartum depression, we talk about generalized anxiety, we talk about bipolar, we talk about schizophrenia, we talk about paranoia, it's so many different, borderline personality disorder, so it's so many different mental health conditions that can happen, but I definitely know that a lot of these subcategories is the root of trauma. Of course, mental health conditions can overlap. What I'm saying is overlap. More than likely, if a person has anxiety, they may have depression and they may have PTSD. Now, it doesn't mean that they have all of them. No, but more than likely, when a person has a mental health condition, they also have other mental health dilemmas that's occurring to the individual. This is why it's imperative that if you are a sufferer of any type of mental health disorder, that you see a licensed clinician or you see someone who's on that path, whether it's a life coach, a holistic coach, or someone who is definitely trained in it and trained in what you need and trained in who you need, and also someone that you can really trust and build a rapport. And if you are in counseling, then you should be always making progress. I'm not saying that you won't have moments of regression, but the goal is to continue to make progress. So I want to discuss trauma because, as I said, trauma is my thing. And I want to give you a little bit of visual so that way you can make sense. So right here, it's a clear bottle. And just imagine this is your brain. So imagine this is your brain when you're a 6 or 7 year old. Imagine like you're 6 or 7, you're in a hypnotic state, you don't really know what's happening. But let's start saying that you start to experience some trauma. Now, when things are going good, you can expect your brain to be like this. Things are just flowing, things are connected, and you're feeling great. However, let's say you were a victim of sexual abuse. Let's say now you was a victim of emotional neglect, right? As you see, it's starting to very quickly taint up the water. So let's say now that you were a victim of bullying. Let's say you was a victim now of religious trauma, hypothetically, right? So then let's keep going because it can be more going, right? So now let's say that you were a victim of, let's different level. I'm going to childhood, so I want to focus on childhood. Let's say you was a victim of being obese, right? Hypothetically. So let's say then you are a victim now of silence, whereas though your voice is never heard. Whereas though it's constantly being silenced, where you're not being seen. Let's say it's so many things that you can be victimizing. So let's keep it like that. Of course, weight issue is something that we stay away from. You know, we don't like to acknowledge it, but a lot of people that are overweight, not saying all the cases, but sometimes they can be using eating as a coping mechanism to hide from their feelings as well. So just keep that in mind. Same thing with anorexia too. We know that when someone is anorexic, that more than likely trauma is occurring, and they're using anorexia as a way of coping with their emotions. Now, everything is not a 100% fix, but we do know that weight disorder definitely comes to play, whether you're too skinny or you're too big on the spectrum. But you see how cloudy that brain got? Quick. And if you see, I mix different colors. I mix purple, I mix black, I mix brown, I mix navy blue, all in here, right? However, do you see, like, it's completely cluttered. It's completely, like, feel. Like, how is someone going to think if their brain is already polluted? Their brain is already polluted. This is childhood. So their brain is already impacted, right? So how can a child really think? Sometimes our trauma is happening at an early onset date that a lot of us are unaware. So when we go into adulthood, sometimes we can't even identify the trauma. Sometimes we don't even know who was traumatized as children until we start to have symptoms. When that is happening, the brain. Going back to the brain, I had drawn a picture. A child brain, from 0 to 8, as I mentioned before, is always in a hypnotic state. What does that mean? They're constantly thinking in black and white. They cannot think in gray matter because that doesn't come into play until you get older. But imagine if you have all those traumas. That's going to prevent you from thinking. What happened is trauma does not register time. So literally, let's say you're an adult, a healthy adult, right? But your brain has already been polluted. And you don't have the coping mechanism to deal with real problems because no one gave you the tools that you needed in order to propel. So let's say now you're a healthy adult, appear to be healthy, but all of a sudden you have a memory. All of a sudden you have an emotion. And this happens randomly. And then when that starts to set in, you start to engulf into that emotion or that setting when it happens. The brain does this thing that it does not recognize time. So if you had an emotion from when you were 6 years old and you're an adult, you are going to go revert back mentally. Of course, you can revert back physically, but mentally your brain is going to go back to a 6-year-old. And whatever emotions or feelings that you're experiencing as a 6-year-old at that time, you're going to re-experience it in your adulthood. And this is why it's important to get a trauma clinician that understand how their mind works. Because if you don't grasp a hold of this trauma, when your brain is overactive, hyper-vigilant, you will start to go through all of the symptoms of a trauma client if you do not see a specialist who's not trauma informed, a trauma clinician that can really ground you and educate you of the dangers of trauma. Because trauma is the hijacker of time. Trauma is the illusion of time. Trauma may not be happening in the present, but if it happened in the past and you tap into that memory or that emotion, then you will be impacted by those same emotions and experiences that you had as a child. Now, as an adult, of course, your brain is more developed, your brain understands. But if the brain doesn't know or you don't know what's happening, you can quickly get absorbed into that trauma. Whereas you're becoming and behaving in that same age bracket that you were as a kid. If you ever seen the movie Get Out, right? If you never seen the movie Get Out, go see Get Out. That's a great movie. What you see happening to that guy, and then when she did like the little I forgot exactly what it was, but literally what she did was stick the individual back into his trauma that he has healed. That guy has evolved. However, when the mother used like this, it was like a clock, and when she used that to the individual, she was able to sedate him back into an age where he felt guilt and shame, and he was sedated into that time. That happens in real life. That is a perfect example of trauma because he experienced guilt and shame at such a young age, although he heals, but he had gotten reabsorbed into it. And that's what's happening to the world today. A lot of us are living in our traumas. So we're not living in the present, or nor can we accept things into the present because we're constantly revisiting the past, thinking that we needed to do more or less than. But remember, as a child, you're limited. Not only are you limited with your thinking, you're also limited with whatever your parents gave you. So keep that in mind. It is so much layers to unpack with trauma, but this is a generalization of what happens with the mind. Then we're going to talk about emotions, feelings, and behaviors, and things of that nature. But I hope this gave you insight of trauma in children and how the brain operates. And this is why with trauma, they do not keep time. And with trauma, you actually will start to lose time. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to leave a comment for the video, or you want me to cover a topic, do not hesitate to listen. Have a great day.